everyone. I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One on One. When's the last time you told somebody a joke? Did you write the joke, or did you just hear it from somebody else and pass it along? Telling jokes is one thing. Writing jokes is another. You can ask Brian Granger. Brian is the first two-time winner of Port City's Top Comic, a Wilmington native trying to make a living now as a comedian. And as you'll hear in our conversation, it's a lot tougher than it looks.
Some people will just ask me to tell them a joke on the spot, and I don't do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, but that's, I mean, isn't that like a strange state of mind for people to think you're a comedian, so you should be able to make me laugh right here?
I should. I really should, but my sense of humor is not like that. But I grew up, with family that would make me perform in front of them. And so on the other end, I am kind of a performer. You know what I mean? But yeah. I just kind of grew out of it. I'm not that silly.
Now, when did you start performing? Because I know you have performers in your family, right? Dad and uncle were both performers, right?
Yeah, I started performing. I mean, technically, the first time I started doing stand-up was in 8th grade. And not 8th grade, 3rd grade. I was 8.
Okay.
And it was my teacher, Miss Lyon at Forest Hills, that would let me get up in front of the class and perform stand-up.
Really?
Kid you not.
What were some of those jokes? Do you remember them?
Oh, it was just a bunch of stuff that I had seen or heard. A lot of Eddie Murphy material.
So how were you influenced by your dad? Now tell the story. Your dad was a DJ? Is that what it was?
Yeah, he's a radio disc jockey out here at WBMS, which is now Hell's Kitchen. So it's Wilmington Broadcast Media Station. There was an AM station. And he was just a radio personality. So he wasn't like a disc jockey that would flip a bunch of records, but he would have to talk and give a format. And I just stayed in the radio room with him all the time. I'd stay the night there and watch him, spin records throughout the night and talk. So
how did that influence you? Did you want to get into this? I mean, obviously you're in 3rd grade. You had an idea you wanted to perform. But where the microphones were and where people were, he was entertaining people. Did that influence you a lot too?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I wanted to do what he was doing. But, of course, we were breaking into that hip-hop era. So my whole thing was to be a Olympic disc jockey is what they call it, where you spin records more and, make music out of the whole deal. And his personality was more traditional. It was more like Quiet Storm, and he would give out different shout outs to people over the radio and things like that. Yeah.
Did you listen to records growing up as a kid?
All the time. Yeah, there was crates of them in the house.
What'd you like to listen to?
A lot of hip hop, jazz, whatever my dad had just kind of around. So I developed this eclectic deal for music. Sometimes you see like a crazy album cover, like say Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Band.
Sure.
I didn't know who it was, but I just liked the album cover so much, so I delved into listening to the music and was like, oh, okay, well this is incredible.
Yeah.
I got into a lot of his old comedy albums and would listen to those.
Okay, who did you listen to comedy wise growing up? Obviously Eddie Murphy. You just mentioned Eddie Murphy, but what other comedians did you listen to?
Album wise, I never listened to Eddie Murphy. So I listened to a lot. I listened to Bob Saget. Back in the late 70s, 80s, and he was really filthy. I listened to Robin Williams.
Oh, what talent he was.
Yeah, and to listen and to have him make you laugh just over an album without seeing his facial expressions is really a gift. That's kind of a step towards what you want to be as a comedian. Yeah, if people can't physically see you.
Yeah. You wanted to tell you with the inflection of your voice. Now, wasn't your uncle a performer too?
Yeah, my uncle Leroy Harper. He played for James Brown, and we lived with him while I was in California, and I got to see. I was around a lot of music at that time.
I bet he told a couple of really nice stories, didn't he?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I bet those were fun times for him.
Most of it, I guess, I had to wait until I was 18 to really get to hear the meat and potato of
Right.
it. And he was still touring with them up until about the point where he was gonna die. It was just off and on though. It wasn't as he was touring with them, for the most part extensively while I was younger, and then as I got older, he would do it here and there and had his own music projects.
Now, you mentioned you went to Forest Hills. You lived on both coasts, right?
Yeah.
Take me back to, just traveling back and forth, because you're a veteran of East and West Coast, right?
Yeah. So I grew up here in the mid 80s, throughout the late 80s, and I moved to California in probably about 89, 90. And when I first moved there, I moved to Los Angeles and went to go stay with my biological mom, and then my dad followed and moved to the Bay Area, so I moved up there. And didn't really much leave. I would go, I think we left when I was in 7th grade, came back here and stayed for a couple of years, and then I went immediately back to California and lived there until I was an adult. Yeah, and so I in the Bay Area, I graduated high school, got my license, did everything formidable, and then when I got to be about 25, well, no, a little bit younger than that, 22, I moved to San Diego, and that's where I started doing stand-up comedy in the clubs, like actually going to stand-up comedy clubs and performing.
Do you remember the first time you walked into one of those as an adult to want to perform?
Yeah.
Take me back to that. Where was it?
It was actually in a hotel center. So it was like, I guess if you were off the freeway, you'd see a Marriott.
Right.
And it was kind of a high rise, but inside that center, there was a nightclub. It was called Mr. O's, and it was dimly lit, and it was very, very urban. Which is, a nice way of saying, or a politically way of saying, a black room.
Right.
And so for me, I'm not from San Diego. I was just right off, just very green to the whole idea. And we go into this comedy show, and I see the host, and he's bombing. And, I looked at, I was like, I can do that. I was like, this is
okay.
It's exactly what I wanted to do. So I talked to the promoter, this guy named Daryl Doc Carter, who was, dressed up like he was a pastor from a church, you know what I mean? Real sharp guy. And he told me to come back next week. So I came back the next Friday, and I bombed.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Miserably.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not one laugh. And,
really? I can't believe that you wouldn't get any laughs out of an audience.
I didn't get a laugh for a year. I kept going back.
So you and you kept going back to want to prove it. You kept going back to try to improve. What was your thought process then?
I'm nowhere near going to be. This is going to be a lot harder than what I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, because my writing didn't match up to what I was trying to relay with the audience. But then I learned tricks from people, because he actually had seasoned headliners that would come into the club. So I saw what they were doing and the ways that they actually put their jokes off. And it didn't mean that my jokes were bad. I didn't have a delivery or a cadence or a timing.
So there's more to it than just getting up and saying, you want to hear a dirty joke, the pig fell in the mud. It's more than that then, right?
Oh, yeah. A lot of it, especially if you're doing a black room, they want to be entertained. So if you're a deadpan comic, you might be able to get away with that in a more traditional comedy room, if you're one-liner and all that other kind of stuff. But if you're in a room where, music and things of that other nature kind of go in, and people aren't afraid to laugh, you're not getting like the golf laugh, they really laugh, then you've got to step up your energy. Just like that. So
when did it start to click?
After my first laugh, really. It still hasn't all the way clicked yet.
But there at that place, you said you went back for a year.
Oh yeah, I went back for a year, and finally, I've realized that people just like to see me smile first and introduce myself. So it's not just to jump right into my joke or say something crude when you start off. It's more of getting them on your side.
Gotcha.
So you smile, you move that microphone stand back, and then you give them your name. And then that brings them in naturally, you know. And so some people liked my face.
Yeah.
You know, instead of just going right off the joke. Some people don't like your face right off the bat, so you got to kind of ease them into it.
Kind of introduce yourself and break the ice a little bit.
Break that ice a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so you're in California. How long did you stay there and perform there? And what brought you back? What brought you to Wilmington to perform?
I stayed and performed in California until about 2010, so probably about 8 years. And then I moved to Los Angeles and really tried to take it seriously as far as doing open mics. And I was limited because I still worked, so I didn't go out on the road and perform like that. But I did go to various different places and perform up and down the coast, Fresno, all up and down California, wherever it was at. I went to Texas and performed, Arkansas, a couple places like that.
And then what brought you to Wilmington? When did you get here?
I got here in 2000.
Or when did you come back here, I guess?
Yeah, 2010, 2011.
Okay.
Just couldn't afford to live out there anymore. I lost my job.
Right.
And so I knew that, you know, I was just kind of running on borrowed time. And I didn't want to work doing what I was doing before. You know what I mean? I would have just been waiting tables and, you know, breaking to make the ends meet, to pay rent. So I just needed to switch up my climate a little bit.
So you came back here and living with family again? You still had family here?
Yeah, Yeah, my brothers were all grown. I have younger brothers I'm like 12 and 11 years apart from. They became grown, and, you know, once I got back out here, it was easier to find a place where I was paying, you know, $600 a month in rent as opposed to $1,600 a month. Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah, so my living was a lot more, you know what I mean? I could go back and work a job. I had no intention on doing comedy.
So you'd come back here, you pretty much had given up on that?
I wasn't going to, yeah. I said, you know, I was going to try and go do music. Like I was gonna,
because you do play drums?
Yeah, I play drums, yeah.
Okay. And do you play with bands still? And you play guitar as well, from what I understand, right?
I dabble in it, yeah.
Yeah, but do you play, I mean, you started playing with drums to keep that energy level up or get your performance out of your system, I guess?
Yeah. That's my other creative outlet, is going to play drums. I played, you know, all through school and high school. So once I got to be a little bit older, I wanted to delve into getting into with a band, you know.
So when did you go back up on stage and start doing comedy in Wilmington? Yeah,
at Nut Street, and it was April of 2012. And a buddy of mine that I was working with at Harris Theater, his name's Andy, he kind of pushed me to go, and he was like, "Hey man, you need to go out there and try and do it." So I decided to do that, and he filmed it, and from then on, I just had the bug, you know what I mean? It just caught to me, and I was like, I need to be back down here. It surprised me a little bit more, the scenery, because I thought, you know, in my head, coming from L.A., that I thought this was going to be a generic version of a comedy scene, and I was wrong.
Well, what's it like?
You got brilliant writers, and also the atmosphere. You know, people get a lot more than what you think they would. You know what I mean? Most people would come from different places, and especially with things that are happening right now in our state, they would think that this is a you know, not an intellectual state. You get people that, you know, aren't really into comedy, would think it was a hateful environment. And that's just a reflection of, you know, what people are seeing in the media. So, you know, to break it down, they think that this whole area is just racistville, like racism. Yeah. And it's a good balance of people that are they're not like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got people that are very broad-minded and accepting, and it's turning in to be a bigger town than what people are in. There's a lot more culture coming in.
Well, and you know, with things like Cucaloris expanding and downtown expanding, and some of the ways downtown is expanding now, I think it's going to bring some more of those different varieties of visitors who then might end up being citizens here on down the line.
Yeah, it's crazy because I guess the inspiration of this town has always made it a renaissance for art. Yes. Always has been. Yeah. Ever since I've been younger. So, I mean, even if you take out the fact that, you know, there's like that tension of racism in this town, there's also a blooming artist, you know what I mean, scene with different artists, painters, film,
theater, stage,
yeah,
all kinds.
All kinds of art. So and music especially. So it really does. If you're an artist, this is kind of the gypsy, a fairway where you can come in and make your rounds here.
2014.
Yeah.
You enter Port City's Top Comic.
Yeah.
What made you enter? I guess, well, you'd gone back to it, so I guess you're trying to get to I guess that's probably the top of the mountain as far as comedy in Wilmington is concerned when you enter something like that, right?
Right.
What was that experience like?
That was a lot more emotional. It was really tough because everybody had brought a lot of their A game, and we probably had a little bit more. We had probably 60, maybe to 50 comedians doing it that year. That they had to eliminate through semifinal rounds. So we did. It wasn't like this year's where it was just a prelim and then straight to the finals. It was like prelim, semifinal, then the finals after that.
So a little more tension.
It was a lot more tense. So that waiting and everything, it got everybody a little bit, it got them anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Webb, our buddy that was with the club, was diagnosed with throat cancer.
Yeah.
And so during that time, nobody knew that he wasn't doing well. He didn't let anybody know that.
Yeah.
He was in the competition as well. And right before he had got put into the finals, he died earlier that week. And it tore everybody up.
Yeah, cast a little bit of a pall on it.
Yeah, because
it's tough to be funny when you lose a friend.
Yeah, and all of us had lost a friend at that point, and not only that, the comedy community had lost somebody that would have been dynamic.
Yeah. So do you remember? And do you have to try to create new material when you go into something like that, or do you just go with? I know that I was at the Hilton a couple of weeks ago. I killed with this. I'm going to use it here.
Right. And that's the thing. When you've got that many rounds, you know what I mean? You worry about if the people that came from the semifinal rounds are going to see you in the finals. So you want to try and do something different, but you don't want to, you don't want to walk that tight line where you can tank that joke. So you want to make sure everything is solid. The cadence is there. You don't want to go over. Everybody looks at that. Yeah. So it's crazy how some people will try out a whole new set and either completely bomb or it'll be phenomenal
or nail it.
Yeah.
But see, that's fascinating to me because if I'm going into a comedy club, I'm just sitting back and I just want to laugh. I want to enjoy myself. Yeah. And I'm just thinking, you guys are up there, and you're just popping off and thinking about these jokes one time, and going, how much work goes into preparing for a set like that?
A lot. A lot more for more people if they are a little bit more writing geared and they're not as much performers. But even with me, I've got my own quiet space where I go and practice my material. Where nobody else is around. I'll write it down. I've got Post-it cards in my, index cards in my jacket right now, and I'll go and write it, and I'll go over it in my head, and you envision it. You envision how it's going to go off. And
so if you have a performance like, say, this Saturday night at Nut Street, when do you start preparing for it?
The week prior. Yeah,
so
I'd
week?
start. Yeah, I'd start now.
That long.
Yeah, and it'll interfere with sleep or whatever. I'll stay downstairs and stay up and write and get a couple hours sleep before I have to go to work. And
that's amazing to me how much work goes into it.
It's a lot of work. Yeah, and some of these guys are naturally talented.
Yeah,
and there's a handful of them, and that's very few. And even with natural talent, you can be good at one thing, but as long as you have to keep it selling, you do resort to the writing. It always goes back to it. You can't run away from it.
So at the end of the 2014 competition, they say Port City's top comic is Brian Granger. Your thoughts?
I cried. Yeah, I cried. Now it's like I didn't expect that it was going to happen that way. I had a good set, but there was a whole bunch of like probably 15 comics that were killing it. You know, one in particular is a buddy of mine, Leo Hudson, who was in a wheelchair. He's in a wheelchair, and his delivery. He's dirty, but he's not. You know what I mean? He was just on the edge. Had the whole room cracking up. And I thought that for sure that I was going to get beat out by him. I just thought his material was way more clever. I was overwhelmed with emotion. I didn't expect it to happen.
I hear that fellow comedians in this community really, truly enjoy your material.
That's that.
I mean, and because when you're performing, whether it's like what I do in newscasting, some people just can't watch another newscaster no matter where they go. Some people can't watch another guitar player wherever they go. People like to watch you. People like to hear your material. That's got to be like one of the biggest compliments you can have.
It is, and I don't, I don't recognize that because I wouldn't want to hear me. And, I always put in perspective. I was like, would people want to pay to see me do comedy? And so I guess it's that some of that self-loathing. You know what I mean?
I mean, I understand that too because I'm my harshest critic.
Yeah.
Believe me, every night when I look at the air check of a newscast, I look at it, John, good gracious, what are you looking at there? Why are you furrowing your brow?
Yeah.
Are you hard on yourself too?
Oh yeah. I don't. It's funny to hear that I've got people that will actually enjoy watching because I'm a fan of most of the comics that are here as well. I love Louis Bishop. It's probably one of my favorite comics. Mike Van Vliet. I mean, I could go down the list of guys. Drew Harrison, who won last year. But for me, I just don't see that there's a whole group of people that would actually be on board to watch me.
No, as I was talking to people getting ready for this, people kept telling me that you're one that everybody likes to and enjoys watching and listening to.
And I play to that. I do new material often. Mm-hmm. I still have old jokes, but I like to do new material because I know that there's comics watching.
Yeah. So 2014, after you win, what did that do for you? What did being Port City's top comic do for your comedic career?
They got me a lot more exposure where I didn't know where it was coming from. So when I went out to Raleigh to go to Good Nights, there was people there that knew me that I wasn't familiar with. And it was like, okay, now I'm at the drawing board. Now I'm in this place where I get to go, go around the region and meet other performers. So we did that. We went on tour after that. Me, Drew, and a couple other guys, Zach. And we went to go to Asheville. We went to, where he's from, Southern Pines. We just took it out to branch out and got to see the comedy scene in the rest of Carolina and how big it is.
Was that enjoyable or was it daunting? Or both?
It was enjoyable. It was really enjoyable. Daunting. There's places where you can go where it does get that way, but it was still really it was eye-opening for me. It's like, I have more work to do. Yeah.
I mean, you got to up your game.
Yeah. Because you see other guys and that we don't get to see here. And I'm like, oh my God, these guys are incredible. Yeah. Had they been at, Port City's top comic, I might not have had the chance. You know what I mean? So I don't delusion myself with, this is a big deal to win the competition. Don't get me wrong. But I don't jade myself with the fact that, I can't not win. Somebody could beat me out.
Right. So 2014 you win. How long did you kind of, and I'm asking this in a way of a confidence level thing. Mm-hmm. How long were you in your mind and I'm 2014's Port City's top comic, I deserve to be here? Or did you kind of get rid of that and say, I'm Brian Granger, I deserve to be here?
I still do.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean it more in a joking way. I did utilize the bragging rights for it. And then it started to click in that, I'm Brian Granger. I deserve to be at this point. I did good material, you know, and I'm still going to.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to stop me. So
Yeah.
I will keep pushing to go to that next level.
Okay, so why did you come back again in 2017?
To win it twice. Yeah, to prove that again, that I could win it twice. And then, you know, to also, you know, take my stuff to another plateau, take
Right.
my level of game up just another notch, you know.
So where do you go from here? I mean, now two-time winner.
Yeah.
What is your plan? I mean, you like to take it somewhere? You've already been to the Raleighs, you've already been to the Charlottes, and been to the Ashevilles. What's next?
Oh, well, I've got to delve off into some of their comedy festivals. Lafayette, Asheville has got an incredible comedy festival. I've got to submit for this year's Cape Fear Comedy Festival. So, I mean, just because I won doesn't guarantee me a spot into some of these different places. And then I've got to, you know, pretty much network myself. Social media.
Yeah.
Stop being so social media shy. You know, I got to update, dust off the Twitter.
I followed you leading up to this, so you got another follower leading up to this interview.
Right on. I appreciate it. Yeah. So now I've got 10.
Do you have different material for different rooms?
I like to, yeah.
So, I mean, if you know one room is good, where you have to be, I guess, I don't know if the word is cleaner versus a little more on the, you know, on the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do. And then, you know, on top of it, sometimes something will inspire me. And I've got segues that can work for me where I can stretch out the material some. But I've got, you know, for the most part, I do have an hour's worth of material. It just needs to be put in so I can take away from certain things. So if I have to do other rooms, they probably don't want me to do an hour. I can do 15 minutes and take a chunk out of that hour that I have and place it together and make it clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd have one room where if your brothers are in the room, you have one set of material. But if a grandmother or mom and dad or aunt or uncle are in the room, you have another set of material.
You have a whole nother set of material. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
do you like performing one versus the other?
I do. You know, of course, everybody prefers to have the younger crowd because, you know, some of the stuff that I do is pop culture related. I talk about rappers. So, you know, I want the demographic to be where I'm at. You know, if you're, you know, 40-ish or, you know, pushing the line of 25 to 40, you might get some of the stuff that I'm saying. Mm-hmm. If you're 90s baby. But when I do see, you know, I go into a room and there's just a salt and pepper crowd, and I get a great response with them too, being dirty. Sometimes, you know what I mean? It's not they've gone through it, right. And I don't have to worry about, you know, pushing the envelope with them. I can be myself.
And I guess, and tell me if I'm wrong, I guess you can go up there with a joke and kind of tip your toe in the water.
Yeah.
With a first joke. And if that one goes, then you know you can go one way.
You can go one way.
If it doesn't, then you've got to turn the wheel right and go another way. So you're literally navigating as you go. Is that how it works?
Yeah. I go and that's the improv part of it that comes into it. So, you know, yeah, these jokes are rehearsed and they're written, but the improvisation is, is it gonna go over well with this couple that's in the front row? You know, so you have to kind of go one way or the other with them.
Yeah. You've got a new daughter.
Yeah.
She's 1 year old now?
Yeah. 18 months, 19 months, yeah.
How did that change you?
Oh, yeah.
How? Aside of having to take care for a child, but
right.
I mean, how did that change you, you know, just mentally? How did that change your material or your outlook on things?
Yeah, psychologically, of course, you know, I became even more anxious and just more, you know, protective of her. So, I mean, although I'm pretty much a pessimist and kind of a skeptic in my own head, a lot of the times with her, it's like it's enhanced more. So I don't trust a lot of surroundings, but I have to get out and do things with her. So sure. I have to take her to the park and I have to take her everywhere where naturally in my own element, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I would be more of a homebody. So I had to be out in public and be around people, which I don't really much enjoy all the time. And then with a child, it makes it a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But on that other end, I got to that I got to come out of that cloud and really enjoy life for what it is by having her. So I get to see, you know, I get to not be so much a recluse, and now I get to people watch, and it's added to my material times 10. You know,
how people respond to a baby, I guess, could be could be a font of jokes, I would imagine.
Yeah,
right?
and just how crazy they are, you know, and inappropriate at most times when it's like, you know, you don't think about it, but you're just like, I don't like the way that came across, but I guess it was harmless, you know.
Yeah.
Some you know, I hate it when older men compliment my daughter for being beautiful, and they do it in a way that's just so creepy. They'll say, "Oh, she's gorgeous. You're gonna have to watch out for her." And I'm like, don't say that. Don't sexualize my child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna have to watch out from her from you, or you know, just say, "Hey, that's a beautiful baby,"
and move on.
Keep it moving. Yeah. Say, "Man, she got some nice legs." I'm like, she's one. Why would you say something like that?
Who makes you laugh?
Louis C.K., Bill Burr, older black women, older people in general just make me laugh all the time.
Really?
Oh, yeah, most of the time. Even if they're curmudgeon and they're really mean, I like the fact that they don't hold back they have no filter a lot of the time. And most people, you know, there's no, young people don't have a lot of respect for older people.
Oh, I'm knowing that anymore with the way society is these days.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was in the mall yesterday and I was looking for something, I had like this group of 13 and 15, I mean, they were cussing really loud, and I'm looking, and there's no older people to be like, you know, to put them in check. And I guess, well, is that my role? You know, I've got a kid with me, and it's like, oh, wow, you know, so everything's kind of changed up. But yeah, they make me laugh as far as how they approach people. They're not afraid to get into a conflict with you if they don't like something.
Yeah, and they'll speak out.
Yeah.
You know, the emails we get sometimes. Yeah, I mean, they're not afraid to speak their mind.
Yeah, and it's awesome.
Yeah. No, right. Yeah, because there is no filter at this point in time. Where do you get material from? Can you get material from a walk down the street, a trip to the grocery store, or changing a T-shirt? I mean, where do you get material?
A lot of it has to come with nostalgia of growing up, just being, you know, brought back and forth in a different. I was always the new kid in school, and so I get that from, you know, my upbringing, my parents, people that I knew. I get material from walking down the street, like I said, going to the park, and hearing a creepy old man compliment my daughter. It comes in from everywhere. A lot of it is from TV though.
What kind of TV? Just the shows or the news or what?
Yeah, terrible TV. I like a lot of prison shows and murder shows like 48 Hours. Right. So I get to watch that and be thankful that I'm not on the receiving end of it. I come up with material for it.
Yeah. Did you ever think to yourself you went too far on stage?
Oh yeah, often.
And remember the first time that happened, maybe by chance?
Yeah, I got beat up one time.
Did you really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was assaulted. I didn't get beat up. I've been hit a couple times, and I've been spit at and had things thrown at me and stuff.
In town here or other places? No.
Yeah, other places. Yeah.
For a joke or something you said?
Yeah, trying to be toothy with somebody, and you know, especially if people heckle you, you try and be a little bit more abrasive than they are, and that doesn't work. You know what I mean? Because you might be talking to the wrong person. There was rooms in Los Angeles I did where there was gang members in there. So I mean, and you can't see them.
Right.
So if you mouth off to the wrong person, and then you hear the whole back area just kind of groan a little bit, they're like, "Oh, that was the wrong person to say that to."
That's not a good sign.
Yeah, and then you got somebody, "I'm gonna see you outside." Like, I'm not going outside.
Ever again.
Yeah. It's like you feel like you're in high school, waiting on the 3 o'clock bell to ring.
Yeah. Did you have to decide what kind of comic you were going to be? Did you? Because let's face it. The Don Rickles of the 1970s wouldn't work today.
Right.
He just insulted everybody, and you're talking about different audiences. I don't think that would work in today's society.
No.
But so you had to be you had to decide which way you were going to be, the deadpan. You talked about all these different kinds before.
Yeah, I just took a mesh of different comics that I admired and tried to meld it into me. You know what I mean? So everything I've seen somebody do, I'll try it at least once, So if I watch somebody that's incredible as a musician comic, I'll try that. It's like, you know what I mean? I have to get that out of my system. Or if I see somebody that's great with impersonations, I try impersonations and try and throw that into my act. Anything to add to it just to make it a complete show.
Right.
I want to do it. And my favorite to watch at one point was John Leguizamo and his one-man dialogue that he was doing. It was awesome to watch him just kind of free flow, dance, do everything, and make it a comedy show.
Do you watch other comedians, or do you watch shows, whatever they are, and just marvel sometimes at the timing, the talent, the material?
Yeah. I do. I get extremely. I don't know how you want to call it. I'm not. What's the perfect word that I'm looking for? Where I admire what they're doing, and I also want to delve into that too. But
right.
Without it seeming like, oh, I have to be like that comic. But it's like I've got to do exactly what that comic. It just takes you back to the drawing board. You know what I mean? So I do. I try and emulate certain comics. It's not a secret. Right. Sometimes you can pick it out. You know what I mean? If I'll go through different, eras with myself, and I don't have my voice, you can tell that I was trying to sound like somebody.
Again, comedy is a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
That I don't think most people realize. Between writing and perfecting and performing, are you ready to take this to the next level? And your goal is to do this professionally and as a job?
Yeah. I'm ready to go out there, and what it entails is just me being homeless for the most part for about a couple years, however long it takes. I'm gonna have to go out and go hit the road and start putting myself out there. Cliff Cash is a perfect example of it. He won 2013 top comic, or Port City's top comic, and then just hit the road gypsy style, and he's still out there, but he's around so many different comics. Even people that I used to perform with in LA, he knows these guys now. He's on that plateau. So then, even though where I'm at, I'm on a small scale, it's still a small world out there. You still end up running back into the same people that are doing this full time, and that's what they do. They just work, and they go from one place to the other, and they like their existence in a hotel. It's like
collect soaps and shampoos for the times that you don't make it, right?
Yeah, come home and your kids don't listen to you because
that happens even if you are home. Believe me, I've raised 3. That happens even if you are home. What would you like an audience to know when they're watching a comedian on stage? Because obviously I want to come in and I want to listen to you, but what would you like an audience to know about you up on stage as you're trying to entertain them?
Really, it's my therapy. So a lot of it I want to relay of, this is a cycle of abuse that I grew up in, where I'm just trying to, I'm trying to end it through displaying it as a satire. The people that I might talk about, or the things that I might talk about, crude situations, I'm not making fun of them. This is just the society and how people have spoken, or things that I've heard. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't care if it's abuse in your household or it's abuse that you've gotten just being in the world, going to school, maybe you weren't that popular or some of those things. So I want to channel in that and let people know that when you're there, appreciate the fact that even if you don't like the joke, appreciate the fact that this person went there.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? They tore off a whole layer of skin to expose something to you.
It takes guts to get up on stage.
Oh, God. And then some of the material that people talk about, like I've heard 2 or 3 guys that will go up and talk about their divorce, and I would never, you know what I mean, or dead relatives, and actually pull it off. But you can tell that that's something that was not easy that they had to deal with. It wouldn't be for me,
Right.
And I marvel at how brave they are to come out of their skin and actually let some of those things go. If I talk about some of my crazy antics or anything that's wrong with me being an alcoholic or whatnot, that's tearing off a layer of skin to give to people. So
yeah, you're up on stage, you're in the middle of your material, and you just hear belly laughs and people are wiping tears off the corner of their eyes. What does that do for Brian Granger?
That means I've done my job. That's all I've worked for, is to get that, because I like that. If somebody's got me crying, laughing, I'm set, for the whole week.
Yeah.
And, I'm repeating the joke to everybody that I see at work. I'm like, oh, and this guy's, and of course I'm butchering it. Oh, this girl, she had the funniest joke.
Yeah.
Oh, it sets me for a week. That's all I live for. Is
that the biggest compliment you can have? Somebody telling your joke 2 or 3 days later?
Oh, yeah. I mean, those are things that have gotten me through my life. You know what I mean? Whenever I've had it hard, most of my time has been dealt with dealing with something that happened really funny. I've got friends that we laugh about stuff that was so stupid, but we still laugh about it 10, 15 years later. It could be as easy as a yo mama joke, you know what I mean? I'll still be laughing at 80 when somebody says, your mom, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you got it and you catch me on the right time, I'm still gonna laugh at it.
All right, I'm gonna ask you to go back. The first joke you wrote that you can tell on a microphone.
The first joke I wrote was about my significant other. She was a teacher, and she had to teach a whole bunch of inner city school kids in San Diego, and she did it by she tried to have them make a map of California, but with Play-Doh. And it immediately turned to left field because it was just a very phallus situation with a bunch of kids. They just all made phallus. And
had no idea what they were making, right?
Well, I mean, no, that's exactly. They knew what they were making. She was in tears, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the first joke that I decided to write, is just to take her misery and say, you know what else do you expect for a bunch of adolescent kids to make with Play-Doh, And so that was my first joke, and it got no laughs. Nobody loved it.
Oh, well, you got to start somewhere, right?
You got to start. But that was also I could tell that joke tonight, right now, that is my humor.
Yeah.
Is to laugh at, things that it's like, well, if you give that to a 7th grade year old boy, that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
I just take myself back.
Real life humor.
Yeah.
That's what you enjoy. It has been fun to get to know you.
Yeah.
Because you make a lot of people laugh, but I don't know if they know the Brian Granger behind the jokes and behind the lines. And I didn't want to make you perform here because I want to make sure that people will go to see you when you're in the nightclub. So
they can come to Dead Crow. You come down there almost weekly. I'm always there, and I mean, especially with Timmy and the whole staff down there. They've given all of us a plateau for creativity. Those guys have, they've made me the comic that I am for the most part. So.
Well, you've also made a lot of people laugh over the years and smile, and that's an important thing to do. Brian, I appreciate you taking the time today. I know you're busy. Thanks for coming in for this week's podcast.
John, thank you.
Brian Granger will be taking his talents to more comedy clubs and festivals now that he's won a second Port City's Top Comic contest. But you don't have to travel that far to see him. He's a regular at the Dead Crow Comedy Room downtown. But a piece of advice, be ready to laugh when you go. If you know someone who you think would make a good interview for an upcoming episode of the podcast, send me an email, jevans@wect.com. And if you like what you heard on this week's podcast, please do me a favor. Leave a review or a rating. That will help us bring in even more listeners. I'm John Evans. Thanks for joining us for this episode of One on One.